that my body was nothing but like a candy wrapper, and it was going to be disposed of, but now I'm back in it. My name is Mark, and in May of 2016, I was diagnosed with cirrhosis stage 4, which means that I was nearing death. It came out of nowhere. Later, the diagnosis changed a little bit, but still I was in stage 4. So at that time, in my dreams and visions, I had a very close relationship with Jesus, and I'm a Christ follower. And so he brought me to a whole lot of different experiences, but he assured me that I was going to live, I wasn't going to die right away. Later, in late May, it was senior skip day for my daughter, and I woke up with what I consider the man flu, where you have a 99-degree fever and you feel like it's just you're so sick. But yeah, I ended up getting sicker and sicker and sicker by the hour. And my daughter was senior day, and she was going to go to lunch with friends. My wife sent her to come check on me, and I was a disaster. I weighed probably like 280 pounds, and she had to carry me down the stairs. I wanted to go to the hospital where all my records were. And by the time I was there, they immediately put me in ICU, and I was dying. And I was screaming. I was in so much pain. And I asked at least a couple of times, am I dying? Because I could feel my body kind of start coming out but I wasn't out yet. I hurt. It's so bad. And they sent out an SOS alert to all my friends and family for them to start praying for me. And even a friend from Nepal, he was living in Nepal at the time. He called on a speakerphone, said a prayer. My family was called to tell me goodbye or hang in there. And they had put me on total ECMO, which means there's nothing really running in your body at all. And as things got worse, they told my wife and family that I had less than 1% chance. So like that's like it's literally a miracle if I'm going to come out, or if I come out alive. And so I was in pain. I heard Ravindra pray for me. I knew my family was there. And I asked my wife, am I going to die? And I don't remember her response. I'm sure it was encouraging. But then they started hooking me up to all these devices. And as I closed my eyes, I was in darkness. And suddenly I just came out of my body. I just emerged out of my body. And I wasn't sure where I was going, but I ended up on this like 1890s trolley. And it was a long trolley. And I sat here, and there was 2 poles. And then there was a seating on the other side, and it curved around, and it was all wood. And I could see to my left a man whipping horses. He had a top hat and a long cape, and it was just dark. And it had a candle lighting the front of the trolley, and I could see the street lights, and they were like lit by fire or whatever, and they were, glowing, not very clear. And I could hear him kind of whip the horse, and I was like, where am I? Is this death? What's going on? And I could hear the horses go and whip, and I could hear the horses kind of neigh. And then we slowly turned a corner, and we came to a stop. And I was sitting on this side looking out across, and the door opened on the other side, and in came a whole row of people, and they were all kind of gray, wearing hoods kind of thing, and they didn't say anything. And I'm like, oh my gosh, this must be death. And they all sat on the aisle just kind of staring. And it was just me looking across the trolley, and the trolley started turning, and I got kind of scared. I thought, oh my gosh, am I going to hell? What's happening here? And I think, Jesus, you told me that I had many lives, and I'm good to go. And then suddenly the trolley stopped and the door opened and the people got off. And then it was just me. And at that point, I started kind of doing a mini plead of why I didn't want to die, but I knew that I was dying. The body knows, that. But the great thing was I wasn't in pain. So I was screaming before, but as soon as my spirit left my body, I didn't have any more pain. And I was just kind of floating in this space. So at this point, I was talking just to nobody, but I was just talking like, is this death? Is this what's going to happen? And then suddenly I came out of that experience, and I started. It's just like the first man that was untethered in the space station. You've seen pictures of him kind of floating out there all alone. That was the power I had. I was in this black space that I could just zoom over here to this light or zoom over here, because in eternity there's no time, and it's you see everything. And I went, oh, and you kind of go back. It's almost like you're on TikTok flipping, and you get to a segment and you go in and you're in the room and you see it from an eternal perspective to something that was either something I did really bad or something I did really good or something that I just did. And I experienced it. I wasn't the person in it, but I watched these things in my life as it progressed. And I realized that I was covered in this perspective of that time doesn't matter, and I could relive those things and remember, and I wasn't scared, and I felt at peace and happy, but I was still kind of cool at the time. I was floating around, I was like, I want to go this way, and so you start going that way. I want to go this way, and then I found myself in like a subway train that goes above and then down and around. And I was in this car and it stopped. And you have another train coming the other way and it stopped. And there was a big vault kind of lock, and it started trying to turn. And in the other trolley, looking at me, waving really excitedly, was my mom and two grandmas, and they were so excited. And they were preparing I kept saying, if I die, I want to go and have a fried chicken dinner. And telepathically or whatever, I said, I don't think I'm ready, so keep it warm. And right as the last digit on the safe, or that big lock kind of thing, the last digit, it got stuck. And then the train started moving, and my mom and grandma went the other way. And from then, I started floating again in space. And once again, I wasn't scared. I was totally at peace. It was kind of cool seeing my mom and grandma. I was so excited. But then I started moving myself towards this kind of blurry, bright light um, in the distance. And so once again, it's kind of like Spider-Man and Wasp Woman or whatever, where the guy was in eternity and, moving on, except I didn't have the big blobs and stuff. But when I did see that movie, I had kind of a panic attack because it was like, oh my gosh, that's exactly like what it was. And, but anyway, I kept getting closer and closer. And when I got there, I saw Jesus, and I knew him and he knew me, like friends. And he kind of waved, and I got right up, and I thought, I guess this is the moment. And I said, but Jesus is is this it? Is my blessings coming to an end? And he just smiled. And then over my back, I just heard this deep voice. And it basically, he called me by my name and he said, "You're in the valley of the shadow of death." And I go, I never thought that the valley of shadow of death was an actual place right before you die. But he said, but don't be afraid. Um, he said, as you were going through all that, I was with you the whole time, and I'm with you now. And I thought, God's been with me this whole time, even when I didn't know that he was there, but he had been with me the whole time. And Jesus was just smiling, but the voice was behind me. And I was just kind of looking at Jesus like, this is kind of weird. And God said, you have a great future ahead, and you're going to reach your destiny. And I prepared this table for you, and you're going to live a longer life and reach your destiny. And I just like, I was almost relieved because even though it was like beautiful and peaceful, I had so many things left to live for with my son, who was about 10, and my daughters that were grown, and my wife. And, you know, I just wasn't ready. And so the next thing I know, it's like I was being thrust back down. And then it's almost like two spaceships that need to connect together. My spirit connected back into my body. And suddenly I felt pain again. And I knew that my whole body, I had things to my heart, and like tapped through the neck. I had all my body had pretty much died except for my brain and my heart. But the brain and the front lobe started to deteriorate, and the doctors really, you know, they all just were made sure my family was there because I was dying. And once again, I was in a coma for over a week, 10 days, a long time. So this process happened over a long time. And I suddenly looked up, and, you know, I saw my wife, and I was like, wow, I'm back. It was amazing. I was like back in my body, and now I felt like my body. But I realized that my body was nothing but like a candy wrapper, and it was going to be disposed of. But now I'm back in it, and then I had to learn to walk again. And when I would go see the doctors, they would all just look at me like, I'm not a Christian, but this is as close to a miracle as I've seen. I don't know why you're still here. You had less than 1% chance. And I heard that doctor after doctor after doctor. And so I kept thinking, well, golly, God said I had like this purpose. And I keep saying, God, send me a text. Tell me what my purpose is now that I'm back and I'm learning to walk. And I've got a sore back now and sore knee, and I'm looking for miracles there. And so now I'm kind of in that stage, but at least I know that really the message for everybody is that the time that you're in your body's just, it's just a bunch of membranes and vessels and organs, but that's not your life. Your life is inside this spirit that wants to be connected to God, and that's what he wants. And that's why he sent Jesus. But my God is, like I said, is a loving God and full of grace. And but yeah, I woke up, and I couldn't move because I'd been on ECMO for so long, and I had to learn to walk again, and all that. But it allowed me to be alive long enough to get my liver transplant, and um, that was another miracle. The things that I'm telling you are the same. And, you should know that God loves you, and he's reaching you. And someday he'll, hopefully, his spirit will come in and change you. And realize that you're here for other people, and it's not this hate and judgment and you know the evangelistic nationalist thing that drives me crazy. So anyway, that's kind of my story.